Welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk. As y'all know, my name's Chad and take a dive into all sports. This is my NFL Week 13 recap video. Kind of highlights some of the games last week and kind of let you know how well I did in those games. But before we go into that, if you could, especially if you like the content, go ahead and smash that thumbs up for me. Give me a like. It pleases YouTube guys, helps the algorithms out. It also kind of helps benefits this channel. Well, there you go. So subscribe. I've looked at my analytics, and I notice I have a lot of viewers, and I love you all for doing that. But not many of you subscribe. Doesn't cost you a dime. It actually helps this out. It lets me, do what I love to do, which is, talk outside my mouth about sports and bring entertainment to you. And it really helped me out, and I truly appreciate it if you do. Now, back to last week's action. I actually stopped losing 7+ games, so that's a benefit. I ended up going 8-6. There's definitely one game in there no one really saw coming. A couple games I could have went either way when I picked, and so it's definitely one of those NFL weekends. It's hard to really kind of pinpoint who's going to be your best team because it seems like no one wants to be the top dog in the league. Kind of let you know how the league is a little more evened out across the teams. Injuries play a key factor in this one, especially at a little emphasis of players have to be out for certain other medical reasons. So it definitely really hampers how to really elevate how teams are going to perform. Because some days they just lay an egg and just get blown out, and other days they step up. So... And so I just kick this off and go into last Thursday's game where the Dallas Cowboys visit New Orleans Saints down in the Big Easy. And we had Taysom Hill as the starting quarterback for the Saints. And then you had the return of Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys and see how that really affected them. And all in all, the Cowboys weren't that bad. Dak was a very efficient quarterback. 238 yards passing with a TD. And it was just really the rushing attack was somewhat lacking. It's like they couldn't really generate a really good running attack. Even though Pollard had 71 yards on the ground and a touchdown. But beyond that, there was nothing else really in terms of running attack besides a CeeDee Lamb run for 33 yards. And it was just... The Cowboys are more of a pass first, run second type of offense, and I get why, because you have the receivers of Lamb and Cooper and Gallup. You want to exploit those receivers and decimate a secondary. But it also kind of leaves Dak out there in the island, but the offensive line protected him, so he didn't really have much. But the Dallas defense was the key in this factor, really. Taysom Hill couldn't really do anything in the air. He still had 264 yards in the air and 2 TDs, but he also got picked 4 times. You can't win games when you throw more INTs and touchdowns. He even ran for 100 yards. So Taysom Hill is definitely a dual threat quarterback. So he's definitely going to be a key aspect to that Saints offense moving forward, at least for the rest of the year. Kind of see what the Saints do this offseason. But the Cowboys were just too much on the defensive side, and they were able to get past the Saints 27-17 to keep their hold on the NFC East a little while longer. Now, on Sunday's action, you had Arizona going up to Chicago. And for me, I would love to pick Chicago. In case you might have seen that I am a bit of a Bears fan. But I understand that this Bears team is nothing like it has been. Injuries have rocked this team. Justin Fields was activated, but he was a emergency backup. The defense doesn't have Khalil Mack. Akeem Hicks is back in and out of that lineup. And they're playing host to pretty much the number one team in the league with the Arizona Cardinals. And Kyler Murray returned, and they were doing exactly what they needed to do at halftime. They're up 21-7. And the Bears were just being a steady team, but there was no consistency with this team whatsoever. It was kind of hard to really see any progress. Andy Dalton was back there, threw 4 picks. I mean, you can't win games if you throw more interceptions than touchdowns. He had 4 interceptions to his 2 touchdown passes. Makes it a little difficult to kind of win games. That aspect. Montgomery was the highlight for the Bears, basically. Almost 100 yards rushing with a TD. Kind of let you know the Cardinals may be susceptible to the run. So it wasn't the end all. I mean, Arizona defense had 3 sacks, 4 interceptions. I mean, it was just a bad day all around for the Chicago faithful, as the Cardinals were able to beat the Bears 33-22. Now in Atlanta, they had Tom Brady visiting the Falcons, and this was just not a good day to be a Falcons fan, because the Buccaneers came to town and just wrecked house. It wasn't even fair. Brady had 4 TD passes. The Swiss Army knife, Norris Cordell Patterson, unfortunately for the Falcons, only had 78 yards on the ground. It was not a good outing at all for Atlanta, as they fall 5-7, and the Bucs end up winning 30-17 to continue to hold on the NFC South and be 1 step behind Arizona. And then in Cincinnati, the Bengals are playing host to the Chargers. And the Chargers will just win these teams. You don't know which version is going to show up. It makes it very difficult to really kind of, predict how to call these games the previous week, because last week they couldn't really, do much of anything. But now they go against a good team like Cincinnati, and they took it to them. I mean, they were up 24-0 before Cincinnati came screaming back and hit 22 points unanswered. But it was basically turnovers that really decimated everything. Joe Burrow had 2 picks, and it was just and not to mention, 2 fumbles caused by Mixon and Burrow. Eckler tried to do his part for the Chargers. He gifted the Bengals 2. But it was just the amount of time that the Chargers were in the Cincinnati backfield, pressuring and sacking Joe Burrow, that really kind of dictated it. This matchup, and that fourth quarter, since the Chargers took control, that fourth quarter with Tavon Campbell had that fumble return for a touchdown after Joe Burrow get hit. That pretty much sealed the fate for the Chargers, as they just in that fourth quarter put up 17 unanswered points and just shut the door on Cincinnati 41-22. All right, and the game that really no one saw coming over there in Detroit. The winless Lions were playing host to Minnesota. Both teams were out there without their star running backs, who both got injured the previous week. Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff are 2 very good quarterbacks. Cousins had 340 yards in the air, 2 TDs. Goff was almost at 300. He's just 4 yards shy at 296 with 3 TDs and a pick. So both quarterbacks were doing their part. It was a very good outing anyways. But both of them, Minnesota found a good replacement running back in Madison, who had 90 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and Jamal Williams for the Lions, and it was 71 yards total. And then, Minnesota has a star in the receiving core in Justin Jefferson, who almost had over 180 yards receiving and a touchdown. So he was like the favorite target, period. And, overall, it was a very close, contested battle, as most of Detroit's games tend to be. they always find ways to make games interesting that they probably shouldn't, and just haven't got over that hump yet of getting that W. I mean, they were up early, 20-6 at halftime, but that kind of allowed Minnesota to kind of climb back and even take the late lead. And it was a miraculous final second play in the fourth that Jared Goff was able to will this team and guide this team to a unprecedented play in which Goff played threw it to St. Brown for 11-yard TD, and the Lions got their first win of the season by beating Minnesota 29-27. Now down in Miami, where the Dolphins are playing host to the Giants, and it really wasn't much. Miami just did just enough what they had to do. Tua Tagovailoa. Like I said, I'm going to butcher that name no matter how many times I hear it. At 244 yards and 2 TDs. His favorite target was Waddle. He only had 90 yards total, no touchdowns. And it's just the Giants' offense was pretty much inept. They really couldn't do much sustained drives. Barkley only had 55 yards on the ground. Daniel Jones wasn't much better. They only averaged to get 9 points through the game. Miami, they would have to do against a weaker opponent, and Miami got the victory 29. I mean, nothing really spectacular in this game. Miami continues to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. We head back to the Meadowlands where the Jets were now hosting the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts was out due to injury, and we had a Minshew sighting. Yes, the great mustache warrior from 2 years ago for the Jaguars is making his first start. And the power of the stash came through. They were down early in the first, 12-7, but that was it. It was all Minshew after that. He had 242 yards passing, 2 TDs. Sanders had 120 yards on the ground for the Eagles. And the Eagles were able to just blow past the Jets and win 33-18. Down at H-Town, where the Texans are playing host to the Colts, and this was not even a contest. Carson Wentz didn't have to do much. He only had 158 yards in the air with a touchdown because they just handed off to Jonathan Taylor, which they should do. They should be a ground-pounding team with that running back. He had 143 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and the Colts shut out the Texans 31-0. Out in Vegas, Washington visited the Raiders, and this was just pretty much an ugly affair all around. So they're kind of hard to really kind of determine kind of how this particular game went. It was just nothing really spectacular. Derek Carr was a yard short of 250 yards, but he had no touchdowns. Taylor Heineke, 4 yards shy of 200, but he had 2 TDs. The rushing attack for the Raiders was pretty much non-existent. For Washington, they had Antonio Gibson kind of lead the charge at 88 yards. I mean, no one really, the only receiver that really had anything significant was Hunter Renfrow for the Raiders, who had 102 yards. It was just not a very exciting game. The defenses were just doing what they had to do to kind of limit the offensive opportunities of each team. And it just came down to the kickers, really. Because Washington just did what they had to do. They did it in the first, and then they didn't score again until the fourth quarter. And that was all they kind of needed. And they had a good drive towards the end of the game where Brian Johnson, who had to be signed because Washington, last week had no kickers because of injuries, hit a 48-yard field goal with 37 seconds left to hit the go-ahead and beat Las Vegas 17-15. This puts the game between Washington and Dallas next weekend, a very key matchup for that NFC East. And Washington is hanging around and making their presence felt in possibly the postseason. Then we head out there to a SoFi where the Rams were playing host to the Jaguars, and Jaguars was just no match to the Rams. And Stafford was able to do pretty much, anything he wanted to at will. He ended up 295 yards with 3 touchdowns in the air. Michelle had 121 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Cooper Kupp was his favorite target for Stafford, had 29 yards on the air with a touchdown. And then, Jaguars made it interesting early. They were it's only 16-7 at a half, but that was it. The Rams were just too much, and they just rolled past the Jaguars 37-7. We had the Steelers hosting the Ravens for a key NFC North showdown. This has pretty much helped the Steelers kind of stay afloat and keep their postseason aspirations alive. There's been rumors floating around that Big Ben is saying he's going to hang, this is his last season in Pittsburgh, which I don't think everyone saw that writing on the wall anyways. So no really big deal. And it was just the inability of Lamar Jackson to really hit his receivers at the correct time. His timing is like way off right now. At least this time he only had 1 interception compared to what he did against Cleveland, where he just coughed the ball up a lot to him. But it's just the fact that he's not hitting his receivers the way he should, and it's just something not right in Baltimore in terms of Lamar Jackson. He's a phenomenal athlete. I can't take nothing away from him. He's still a dual threat quarterback. And if you get out of this funk, he's going to tear up the league. But right now he's in the serious funk, and they don't watch if Baltimore can find themselves out to the playoffs. And that could be devastating for Harbaugh and Lamar for that one. But for the Baltimore Ravens, they do have a running back that they starting to come to his own in the backfield, and that's Devontae Freeman. So if they can help him blossom back there, which that will help alleviate a lot of pressure off Lamar Jackson, so he doesn't have to do everything himself. He has another runner he can trust in and make plays. But it was just Big Ben was doing what he had to do. 236 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. Najee Harris was 71 yards on the ground, helped balance out a little bit. But Deontay Johnson for the Steelers had 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the number 1 target for Big Ben. The Ravens had no answer to him. And it was just, an issue all night long. And the fact that the Steelers were back there in the Ravens' backfield multiple times, disrupting Baltimore and disrupting Lamar Jackson with 7 sacks. I mean, that was just unreal, especially when TJ Watt had 3.5. I mean, he was back there more times than Devontae Freeman. Almost looked like he put on the purple uniform, said that, the black and yellow. Despite all that, Baltimore came down and, marched down the field. They were down 20-13, hit a last second touchdown, and Harbaugh was being aggressive. He went for the win. He went for the 2-point conversion, and Lamar tried to get to his favorite target, Andrews, and his timing was off, where Andrews slowed down. One of the two, maybe both, was out of reach of Andrews. If he would have caught it, he would have been in. But it was out of his fingertips, just inches. And that's all this league is. It's just a matter of inches. And missed it. The onside kick failed. Pittsburgh ended up winning 20-19. Now, if I was the head coach of Baltimore Ravens, which I am not, I would take in the extra, went with extra point and kind of go for overtime. But then you kind of run the risk of you could lose in overtime anyways. So I get what he called it. It's a gutsy play, gutsy call. Harbaugh just fell short on that aspect. Then up in Seattle, the home of the 12th man, you had the Seahawks hosting the 49ers. This was a key NFC West showdown, and the Seahawks has been the same since Russell Wilson returned. But this is one of these games I saw that Seattle probably couldn't do this, but I didn't pick them. And Seattle came out. I mean, they stifled the 49ers. They matched them play for play, and it was a back and forth showing between these two quarterbacks. You know, it's just like, say, hey, I'll score. No, I'll score. 49ers went up 17-7. And then, you know, Seattle try and get back to it. And then they went up again. And at the half, it was 23-21 San Francisco. But after that, that was just all Seattle. The defense had a huge safety in the third that really changed the dynamics of this game. That was the momentum switch, because then the Seattle defense just locked down the 49ers in the second half and shut them out that second half. The 49ers could not do anything. Garoppolo was 1 yard shy of 300. We had 2 TDs, 2 picks. Russell Wilson had 231 yards, 2 TDs in the pick. So both quarterbacks were pretty much comparable in terms of this. Rushing attack was pretty much non-existent. George Kittle was, of course, the prime target of Jimmy G, which, you know, is understandable. So the Seahawks had no answer how to take Kittle out of the equation, because Kittle had 181 yards receiving and 2 TDs, only on 9 catches. I mean, that's just unreal. And the 49ers tried to do their best on defense. They sacked Russell Wilson 4 times, but it came once again in the fourth quarter. 49ers were trying to score a late fourth quarter touchdown, and, you know, the play was set up where they couldn't, and Seattle denied them the touchdown in the fourth and beat the 49ers 30-23 to keep their slim postseason hopes alive. As I do say slim, because they're still up going on an uphill battle. Then Sunday night, you had a wild West showdown between AFC West teams of Denver and Kansas City. And the Kansas City defense stepped up. They didn't let Bridgewater do much of anything. He had 257 yards and a touchdown. That was pretty much it. The Broncos still able to run a bit, so that's still a weak point of the Chiefs' defense. Williams at 102 yards on the ground. But there wasn't much really to kind of do anything, because they allow the Broncos to kind of stretch them out a bit, but they couldn't do anything with that, because Bridgewater threw 2 interceptions. One of them led to a Sorensen 75-yard return for a touchdown with his very unique celebration. And the Chiefs defense showed up. They were the star of the game. The Chiefs offense was once again misfiring, but the Chiefs D stepped up and kind of helped this. So there's some issues with the Kansas City offense, so hopefully they can get that sorted soon. But the Chiefs end up beating Broncos 22-9 with no issues. And then Monday night, this was a game of for the linemen, really. If you watch First Take and you saw Jeff Saturday, he was elated about how it was all run all the time. The New England threw it like 3 times And they ran combined, it was like 222 yards. They just ran the ball down the Bills' throat constantly. Davian Harris had 111 yards on the ground. I mean, he busted a 64-yarder touchdown. This pretty much was it. The Patriots defense stifled Josh Allen all game long. The only time they were able to get any, the only touchdown they got when New England muffed the punt, gave Buffalo excellent field position, and they were able to march in. But beyond that, there was just ground and pound. Key factor of this was the wind. The wind was atrocious over there in western New York with that lakefront snow lakefront weather coming in. And you can watch, they're in practice. The Trent kicker's trying to kick anything younger than 40 yards, and you see the ball just doing, weird maneuvers. And look at it straight. Next thing you know, it went far right. So definitely you understand it was not going to be a kicker game. The passing going to be a little bit off. The only one that could really know how to do that type of throws is Josh Allen. Because anyone's been to Wyoming understands that for some reason there's just wind out of nowhere and it's powerful. He played in Wyoming, so he knows how to kind of handle that type of weather. Plus, he's been in Buffalo for a few years now, so he's used to that one as well. But, it was just all ground and pound by the Patriots. They dominated this game. And it was another late fourth quarter drive. And Josh Allen was trying to find some magic. New England actually saved a all-out blitz to the end. Blitz Josh Allen. He had only 3 receivers to pick from. And looking at the he looked like Beasley was the one he probably should have went to. It was just the defender who was trailing Beasley saw that the ball was going, behind him to the guy in the end zone. So instead of going for the first down, Josh Allen went for the home run, but he got tipped. That was it. Buffalo did what they had to do. I mean, New England did what they had to do. They won a slob knobber of a game, old school football. Beat the Bills 14-10 to be the number 1 team in the AFC right now. I mean, it is just weird to kind of look at that and see that the New England Patriots look like to be back in top condition with a rookie quarterback. But it's just how this team is built. It's built on the way that Belichick knows how to operate, and they get these mid-tier guys. They knows how to mold them and create them as a cohesive unit and move forward. So now we look at the conference standings and kind of see how things play out. As I said, New England's down the top dog in the AFC, followed by Tennessee, Baltimore, Kansas City. So your 3 divisional leaders. The wildcard teams are right now the Chargers, Bengals, and Bills. So you look like your first round matchup right there is Bills and Titans, and the Bills didn't fare well against the Titans, so that's it's trouble for them. But then you look at the teams still in the hunt. You still got the Steelers, the Colts, the Raiders, the Browns, the Broncos, the Dolphins. It's just outstanding how these teams are still hanging around. Like 2 games all out from the those final positions, and even possibly a divisional title. So the AFC right now doesn't look like you have a true favorite, even though right now the Patriots are in the lead. But it could happen that they end up losing the game, and the whole thing just kind of crumbles down. Houston has been officially eliminated. They are the weakest link, and they have to do something this offseason because that team is just horrible. On the NFC side, right now the Cardinals are the best team in the league. They're 10-2. I don't know what's going to hamper them the most besides Green Bay. But right now they're they're firing on all cylinders. So we'll kind of see how they can maintain this type of momentum throughout the season. Behind them is Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and Dallas as division leaders. Right now, I see no issues with all those top four winning their divisions right now. It's just how they're all playing. The 15 is the Rams. I think they're also pretty much a lock to get into postseason as well. So it's pretty much a race for that 6-7 position right now. That's Washington and San Francisco. But then you look at the stack of teams behind that. So you have, Philly, Minnesota, Carolina, they're in there, Atlanta, New Orleans. And right now, you still throw in the Giants, Bears, and Seahawks. I mean, it's the way the Giants and Bears have been playing. That's kind of a gift in itself. But we'll see how this will pan out as the season progresses. There's 17 games, and I doubt a 7-8 team. Or excuse me, you have to be like a 9-8 team to probably get into playoffs. I don't see Chicago doing that, or the Giants. So I have a feeling the next couple weeks those teams will get knocked out. Seattle may make things interesting, and poor Detroit, worst team in the league, hasn't been eliminated yet. So they're better than Houston in that aspect. So we'll kind of see how things pan out from there. Yeah, that was it. That's the review of my picks. I ended up going 8-6, so I stopped my losing 7 more games finally. It's only taken me 6 weeks. But I don't celebrate too much because my son actually did better in picking his games. He went 9-5. He beat me, so hats off to him. We'll see how things kind of pan out next week. But I get my video that you did this Thursday before the Steelers and Vikings kick off this Thursday. That should be an interesting game between these two playoff hopefuls. You got to see which team really shows up. And let me know what you think. You can leave a comment down below, especially which game this past weekend was your biggest disappointment. Which one you're most excited for? Were you happy that the Lions finally got their W? Are you sad to see the Texans eliminated already from the postseason contention? Hey, just put it down there. While you're there, you go and smash that thumbs up for me. Especially if you love this content and it helps algorithm, pleases YouTube gods. It really benefits this channel. And you go subscribe. Once you subscribe, hit that bell notification. I'll let you know next time I post a video, and I'll see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.